Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to day 13 of the Workplace Power Leverage session. This is a 31-day career accelerator for value-driven professionals. And the goal is pretty much simple. I basically want to help you win at work and in life. And you know how I do that? I give you over the course of 31 days, I give you 9 power leverage. Now, this 9 power leverage is going to help you in terms of you being able to accelerate your career, improve your recognition within the workspace, grow your income, help you live the life that you really want to live. Today, we're going to be starting up on the 5th power leverage, and this is your leadership power leverage. Now, for most of us, I think generally every one of us, one of the things we need to realize is that within the workspace, we don't work solo. Most of the time, we are part of a team. Now, for most of us, there are different ways in which we recognize and see the teams that we are part of. For some of us, the way in which we understand our teams is, for example, you have a standard team structure. You are part of a department, you're part of a functional group. And that's the way in which most of us see our team structure. Now, what I want to bring us around is the 2 types of team structures that you have. You have what you call the unifunctional teams, and you have what you call your cross-functional teams. Now, what are your unifunctional teams? Unifunctional teams are teams that are aligned by one common goal or one common objective, which is usually functional or task-based. So, for example, let's say you're part of a department, that is a unifunctional team, because every one of you, you're tied to delivering one particular goal. So, for example, you're part of a member of, let's say, the accounting team, you're part of the development team, you're part of the business development team, that sort of thing. That's what you call a unifunctional team, because look, you're tied together by one objective, one set of tasks together. Every one of you is aligned in terms of your skill sets to deliver on just that one target or one objective. Now, you now have what you call cross-functional teams. Now, the way you need to see cross-functional teams exist in 2 variations. The first variations you can have your cross-functional team is, for example, let's say they set up an ad hoc committee made up of people from across different teams. You have people from whether the finance, you have people from the sales, you have people from the administration. Every one of you coming together as part of an ad hoc team. That's one version of a cross-functional team. Now, there are situations whereby you actually do not have what you call a formal team. What you have is that this usually happens more within a small office, whereby you don't really, because you don't really have the volume of work for you to actually break into multiple teams. You now have a situation whereby everybody is more or less handling one core area. So, for example, you could have, usually happens maybe in startup situations, whereby you have one person who is handling the whole gamut of a particular function of what should be under a department, and you have everybody all set up around that sort of logic. So you have a situation whereby you have, for example, somebody in charge of accounts, somebody in charge of sales, somebody, and that sort of way. If without realizing that, one of the first things you have to understand is that all of you together within that setup, you are actually part of a team. It's just a cross-functional team, similar to your ad hoc. The only difference between this and the ad hoc team is the fact that for the ad hoc team, you most of the time have a fixed lifespan. So, for example, if they bring you together for an ad hoc cross-functional team, there's obviously a target, a goal they want you to achieve, and that's the reason why they bring all of you together. And so there's always a time element tied to that look, okay, by so time you need to have delivered this, you need to have completed this, etc., and things like that. Whereas for the other type of cross-functional team, there's really no defined terminal date for every one of them. Effectively, you're going to continue working for as long as the job exists. But you have to think of the value which you bring into that. And that actually takes us to the second part of the conversation today. We've understood the various types of teams that we could be part of. The next thing we need to understand is how we bring value to the respective teams that we are part of. Now, number one thing I want you to get out of your mind is, don't think the way you bring value to your teams that you're part of is by virtue of your job description. Your job description is basically your minimum membership card. Your job description is basically what gets you to be a part of that team. And so don't think that the way you bring your highest value to that team is by your job description. The way you bring value to that team is actually your ability to leverage your other your ability to leverage the other competencies that you bring in as a person. And these competencies are really driven by, number one, the experience that you brought from the past, the relationships that you bring in from the past. Those are really the things which you need to be able to leverage on in terms of your biggest value contributors. Now, let me give you guys an example. There was a time in which the firm that I was working with, they acquired a company which was based in Barcelona, Spain. And as a result of that, they decided to move me just to help with the integration of the company. They decided to move me to go and be part of the team within the setup in Barcelona. Now, I had my clear job description in terms of, okay, what it is I was supposed to be doing every day, what are the tasks, what are the deliverables that I basically need to achieve on a consistent and ongoing basis. But you know what? That really was not the highest value that I brought to that team. Now, the way it is that this team was a cross-functional team, but not an ad hoc one, more of a permanent one, because it wasn't like a big team, because that team, the team in Barcelona was the team that was more responsible for overseeing what was happening across the other subsidiaries, because we had other subsidiaries across the African continent. And so the responsibility of that team was basically to oversee what was happening across the continent. And that's where I found myself in. Now, the biggest value that I brought into that setup, like I said here, was not necessarily what I was doing aligned with my job description. The biggest value that I brought to that team was my ability to seamlessly network that team with the team that was back in Nigeria. Now, in terms of scale of business, Nigeria had one of the largest business coverage within the subsidiary. And the team back in Barcelona, for them to be able to get some of the information that they needed to get, they needed to know who it is that was responsible for those sort of information. Now, simply because I have been part of the Nigerian setup, I understood, who it is you need for this information, who it is that you need. So, for example, maybe the guy in the guy in accounts is trying to get some particular information from the team in Nigeria. I'm able to okay, yeah, this particular information, it's this person who's going to be able to deliver it, and I can probably just pick up the phone, call the person, like, hey, my guy, look, there's this thing we need to get. Look, can you get it out for us as quickly as possible? Now, what I succeeded in doing here is this. I succeeded in creating a stronger bond between the team in where I was working and the team in the previous place that I had worked with, simply because I was able to leverage the relationships. I was able to bring the experiences. For example, there are times in which they're trying to do a couple of things, and I'm like, okay, based on my experience in terms of doing this, this is what I feel, this is what I think. So the biggest value that I brought to that team was not necessarily my job description. The biggest value I brought to that team was actually my ability to network the team with the other team in the subsidiary, which we are trying to catch up with, my ability to be able to leverage relationships which I already had to be able to bring the biggest value in terms of driving the work forward. And that's what you need to be able to think about in terms of how you bring value to the teams, whether it's a unifunctional team. So, for example, let's say you're part of a unifunctional team, that is, you're part of a department. You need to ask yourself, what is the way in which you can bring value outside of your job description to the people that you work with? Because why? You have to realize that, look, and that's going to be part of the conversation that we're going to have tomorrow, that, look, the way you provide leadership to a team does not necessarily mean you have to be the head of the team. The way there are some people that are recognized as leaders, not because they occupy the post of leadership, but simply because of the way in which they've been able to drive the activity and the performance of the team. And that's the type of person I want you to be. I want you to be the kind of person that in whatever team you find yourself, you are the one who drives whatever the success and the progress of the team is. Because effectively, what you are doing is you are creating a stronger brand for yourself within the team. If you are being identified as the go-to person, the person who helps things move, the person who helps things get done, look, there's a whole new sense of identity that it gives you, not only within the team, but also within the workspace that you find yourself. Why? Because, look, by being able to do that, what you're doing here is this: you're helping to move the goals and objectives of the team faster. And when the team gets its goals and objectives achieved faster, you also are able to move faster in terms of how you are being recognized within the workspace. The bottom line here is this: you need to sit down and actually think along the lines of, look, what is the biggest value that I actually bring to the teams that I am part of? Let me share my screen, because that's actually going to form the full load of your assignment for today. So day 13, leading teams. So what you need to do here is this: you need to identify, first and foremost, what are the unifunctional teams that you are part of, if there are. depending on where you are, depending on where you are in the organization that you're part of. And the next thing is you need to identify cross-functional teams that you are part of. I've listed no more than 2 cross-functional teams because generally, I doubt if you are going to be part of more than 2 cross-functional teams. For example, if you are in a unifunctional team, and then you also have the opportunity of being part of maybe ad hoc committees or whatever. I doubt if you are going to be ever part of more than 2, because if you are part of more than 2, then it begins to eat into even your ability to deliver on your regular everyday job at a particular point in time. So I wouldn't expect that you would have more than one, be part of more than one cross-functional team. So you need to, number one, identify your role in that team. What I mean by role, this is actually what is defined along the lines of your job function, in terms of your job description. Okay, what is your role in the team? But now you now have to go beyond that. You now have to ask yourself, how do you bring value to the team? And how you bring value to the team is basically how you can leverage your past experience, your relationship networks to help the team deliver the highest value, to help the team achieve its goals in a faster and more progressive way. I mean, that's really, really the way in which you need to think about this. So that you have your work cut out for today. This is your task for today. So today, we started our conversation in terms of understanding your leadership leverage. And the first thing we actually want to understand here is we want to understand the current teams that you are part of, whether they are unifunctional or cross-functional, and how you bring your biggest value. And like I said, the way you bring your biggest value is not driven primarily by your job description. It's driven by the previous experiences you have had and the relationships that you are able to network with for the good of the team. Those are the 2 core things that actually drive your biggest sense of value within a particular team. And with that, we come to the end of today's conversation. It's been great hanging out with you. And one thing very, very much important, which I always encourage you to do, is try as much as possible to do the daily task. The daily task is very, very important because that's what really reinforces and deepens the learning experiences that we're having. The goal is that, look, by the end of 31 days, you'll have done 31 different tasks every day. And all these 31 different tasks add up to one thing, helping you to win at work and in life. Very, very much important. So thank you very much. Please, if you have any comments, any ahas, any feedback you'd like to present, you have to offer regards to today's conversation, please leave it in the comment below. Thank you very much. I will be checking. If there are any questions, you can also drop your questions. I will also come here and be checking and responding to it. Thank you very much once again, everybody, for joining me today. I want to wish you guys a wonderful day, and I look forward to reading your comments of your ahas and your learnings within today. Thank you very much.